another episode of Beautiful Subconscious. I'm Shell Marie, and today I am thrilled to introduce to you our guest, Harmony Jade. Harmony is a passionate business leader with over 20 years of experience. Having hustled 24/7 to get ahead, she knows firsthand the toll that kind of grind can take. But Harmony made the bold decision to take the leap, stepping away from the corporate world to create a life of balance and fulfillment. Now she's dedicated to helping soul-driven female entrepreneurs to do the same, make more profit while living a life fueled by passion and impact. She is here to share her insights on how to take the leap and how by taking the leap can lead to true success without sacrificing your well-being. Hello, Harmony.
Hello. I'm so excited to do this with you. I love everything about your podcast, and I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you on here. I love things like this where we can connect. We often see each other as much as we can through networking things, and it's always just such a vibe to connect. And I'm really, really excited that you're here today. Before we kick on in, as always, we are going to pull a card, and beautiful Harmony is going to tell me when to stop. So when you are ready, you let me know what card is calling you for our episode.
All right, stop.
Okay. Today, I surrender to my divine feminine energy.
Love that for us.
I love that for us too. I feel like these cards are so freaking aligned to the topic and the theme of what our episode is always. So whenever you can connect to this episode, this is a message from me and Harmony to you: is surrender to your divine feminine energy. I love that.
I feel that.
Yeah, I feel that. So, Harmony, for those who may just be getting their first taste of you, can you give us a rundown on your background and your world?
Yeah, so I'm based on the west coast of Australia now, but I was actually born and raised in Melbourne. I have a previous background in 20 years in the retail industry in retail operations and leadership, managing up to $30 million of store portfolios in retail. So that was my life for a really long time. At the back end of 2018, I suffered with career burnout, which looked like can't get out of bed, debilitating anxiety, crying to and from work every day. Yeah, pretty much just a shit show for your nervous system. And I guess, burnout being the nice way of saying that I had a nervous breakdown. So after that, I made the biggest decision ever, and that was to sell everything, quit my career, and just go all in on myself. And so I traveled Australia. And yeah, here I am in Western Australia. I'm now a certified yoga teacher and a business mentor, and I absolutely wouldn't change a thing.
Oh, that is just phenomenal. And that's there's so many points within that. It's just the way that you, firstly, what I'm understanding with your journey is to get to that level of leadership and to hold portfolios to that side, you would have really been putting all of everything into this day in and day out with, I'm sure, with the right intentions to do as best as you can. And sometimes with the right intentions, but without us knowing, it can be so detrimental to our health, right?
Absolutely. I always, from a very, very young age, I got into, my work and my career as soon as I could, 14 and 9 months, I was there. I absolutely loved it. I actually dropped out of fashion school for it because I was like, well, why would I sit in a classroom and learn how to make dresses when I could be styling people in dresses, straight away. So I absolutely loved working and, built my way up through different companies in Australia and worked for some of Australia's most iconic brands over the years. And I just loved working, and I loved, the people and the face-to-face interaction. I loved training people. I loved managing teams. And yeah, it became this thing that was, the more senior you get in those roles, it gets very, very competitive. The expectations get, really full on. And my last role as a national manager for an international retailer, I was glued to my phone just 24/7. When Australia shut its stores, I was still on the phone and still on Zoom meetings to South Africa, until midnight some days. And you just cannot live a life like that long term.
Yeah, totally not sustainable. And I think, that type of ruthlessness in wanting to help can be, underneath it. It's just that drive is there is something that's a gift and a trait that is going to support you, but it's just the way that it's been sort of, I guess, projected or utilized. And I think that drive of you loving work now and really backing yourself and knowing what you're capable of allowed you to take the leap into going and pivoting in a completely different way that was in more of service to you, which I think is absolutely phenomenal. So can you tell us about how it was for you taking those big, bold decisions or making those big, bold decisions in just changing your life entirely?
Yeah, look, it was probably the demise of like my health and the decline in my mental health probably I would say, would go, if I was really honest with myself, probably like 5 years for the last 5 years of my career. And I'd only switched companies in the last 2.5 years of my career to where I got headhunted by this South African retailer for this really big role. But realistically, when I look at it, like if we call it data and we look back at, things that were going on in my life and the transitions that I was making and the way that, one, I was expected to show up in business, but two, how I was actually being, how I was responding to showing up and how much I started to resent the industry because I just kept thinking, oh, well, I'll change companies and it'll get different and the culture will be better. And some of the cultures were better, like, I was working for more and more aligned businesses along the way and had great leaders above me and I got treated really well. But it was the same job. And I was just like, this is just not aligning with me. It's just not feeling good for me. And I think in that kind of last 12 months, I was like, you know what? Like something needs to change. I was sick all the time. I couldn't get out of bed. My eczema was really bad. And I went on a holiday with the family and I was just so anxious. Even my own family was triggering me. I just literally couldn't be around a group of people. Mm-hmm. And I remember being down the street with a friend who was traveling with us and I saw one of those like wicked spray painted vans in the street. And I saw this van and I said to my friend, do you reckon I could do that? And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, just get a van and just like, fuck off. Like just get in a van and just travel and just like live free. And she was like, well, I suppose like people do it all the time. And so I spent the rest of my that holiday researching, camper vans, trailers, caravans, all the things. It escalated a lot from me thinking, oh yeah, I'll just buy this thing for 10 grand to, I spent $84,000 on a caravan and had it custom built, like,
Pimp my ride.
I don't do things by halves. But the minute I had decided on that holiday that was what I was going to do, everything else fell into place. And when I say fell into place, I had to put actions into place. But I think where people get stuck in big life transitions is making the decision. And the pain that we cause ourselves is in the indecision. The living in the what if phase is what causes people most of their anxiety. It was definitely causing me anxiety because I was like, how am I going to get out of this career? I'm not qualified in anything else. I've done the same thing for 20 years. What am I going to do? How am I ever going to get another job? And in the end, it actually didn't matter because what mattered is my health and getting out of the situation that I was in. So I came back from that holiday and put my house on the market just as the market started to crash, which was pretty hard. Like I know I didn't get the money that I probably could have for that house. It would be worth $1 million by now. It was across the road from the beach in Melbourne. But I just thought it doesn't actually matter. I just need to get out. I don't want to be tied to it. In my head, or even in my subconscious, I would say that I probably knew that I wasn't coming back to Melbourne, that something else was going to come up for me and I just didn't know what that was going to look like. And so I just had to decide that I had to back myself no matter what and stop doing everything for everyone else, which I did in my business life, but I also did in my personal life for a really long time. I've been single for a really long time. So it's really easy as the single sibling to put your hand up and go and help your parents or go and help your brother and sister or go and help my grandparents who are elderly and never actually prioritize yourself. So this was like the first decision in my life where I was like, I'm fucking backing myself on this. No matter what happens, I'm going to find a way out of being this person that was miserable, that, I just had no personality left. I wasn't the person that I, loved and prided myself on being this bubbly social person. And yeah, I just knew I needed an out.
Wow, that's incredible. Like, I think hearing I just know I need something. I don't know what it is, but I'm getting drawn to somewhere. Like, for sure, that is just this innate inner knowingness of that it doesn't make any logical sense. And especially when you're known to be that corporate leader and people have known you to be this hustler and this, that to go against, like, it's just natural for the mind to want to like question and like be like, what the heck are you doing? Because this isn't what we do. This isn't how we've done it. Like, what the heck? Like, what are people going to say? Like, and so you're ruminating in this suffering of, right, what the heck is happening? And I think so many people can relate to that, where they're just like, it doesn't make logical sense, but on some level, it's the right thing to do. So when people are in those spaces where they're just like, my head is telling me one thing, I'm like questioning every freaking thing, but my heart is saying, just go for it. I know that we don't have the complete roadmap yet, but we do on some level. Like, what can you give like advice to for people that are in that space?
Yeah, I mean, you would know from obviously working with people in the subconscious that like your body and your intuition and your soul always knows what the right path is. The problem is we live in this world where there is so much noise. There's so much noise that's physically in front of us. Like, we're consuming more information on our phone just by scrolling for 20 minutes on Instagram than someone would have, 500 years ago. They wouldn't have consumed that much information over a lifetime. And so it's just so much noise, so much distractions. And how can you possibly know what you want or hear what your body and what your soul wants and what you actually really crave if you don't cut away that noise? So little by little, I started slowly chipping away at what I knew was not for me. And that was, toxic relationships and, toxic friends that I knew were talking about me behind my back, and stop spending money on superficial shit and, start investing in what really mattered to me, which was like experiencing the world and getting out there and traveling and meeting new people and, changing my surroundings. And so I think if people are really stuck in this position of, I know this isn't my path, but I don't know how to get out of it, just rather than trying to work out what is for you, start chipping away at what's not for you and just start letting things fall. And I mean, that probably comes back to our beautiful card that you've pulled today, which is surrender. And it's like, not don't try or don't have goals, but just don't try so hard for things that aren't working. Like, stop trying so hard for stuff that isn't meant for you, because oftentimes when we feel like we're pushing shit uphill, like we're actually pushing shit uphill. Like, you're just trying to force something that really isn't meant for you. And so the more you can cut away, like, the habits, the behaviors, the language that, maybe your friends are speaking or maybe your family's speaking, and their beliefs that your family's had for a long time, like, ask yourself, is that what I really believe? Or is that just the way my mum spoke or my siblings talk or my friends talk? Is that how I really feel about the world or that situation? And just start cutting away everything that's not for you, because it's the only way to get back to who you really are at the core of your being, is to let go of everything that's not you. That is just so much easier than trying to find you in quotation marks. Just let go of what isn't you, because you'll in those moments, like if something feels a little bit ick, whether it's a conversation, a person or whatever, like you'll know, like just don't go back to that. Don't accept that and just keep cutting away.
I love that. Beautifully said. And I think like we do lose that connection to our intuition so easily in this day and age, because we are consuming so much, like you said. And it's just like, all you need to do is be on social media for 5 minutes and there's comparisons, or like, is that my thought? Or do I believe that now? Is that going against what I just thought before? Like, and then so you've got this tennis match going on in your head of just like, I don't actually know what's me and what's like everything else that's influencing me now. And it's just become so overwhelming. So I think like you said, just start to drop away the things that make you feel those moments of like, just disconnected or overwhelmed, and it might take a second, especially when we're so inclined to get these quick dopamine hits, but it just in the long run really helps your soul. And I think like you and I both have got a yoga background, and I would love to explore how you found it. But I know for me, when I came across yoga, it was not against, but it wasn't expected with the personality that I have, because it seems more zen and more and I'm like can be a bit energetic, that I didn't even expect myself to be a yogi per se. And it was the most profound experience to be in that room. And I started with Bikram yoga, so it wasn't traditional yoga. So I had to probably start from there and make it be a bit more on my level at that time, which was like hard military, like, to then soften into it. But if I went to the traditional, it may not have landed with me where I was at that part of my journey. But I remember like my friends, they would just be like, who are you? What is going on? And I would start all of a sudden not go out to Friday night drinks because I'm like, I've got yoga in the morning, so no. And they're just like, what? Like, did you have that same experience? How did you find yoga?
Yeah, look, I mean, yoga's literally changed my life.
Yeah, me too.
The reason I teach yoga, when I started my travels, I started practicing yoga using an app by Amanda Bisk, actually, who's also a Perth girl. And I started practicing yoga using her app, and I was still, doing gymming on the road and all of that sort of stuff. Because when I actually left Melbourne, I was, doing CrossFit. I was doing like all the
yang.
All the hustle, all the yang, like
yeah.
harder, be skinnier, do this, do more. Like that was just essentially
more equals more.
Yeah, I feel like they should just change the name of Melbourne as a state to just more, because like everyone there is just doing more, right?
Yeah.
And so when I found yoga, I was just practicing that daily. It became a part of my morning routine, because what I wasn't aware of was like how much time I was going to have on my hands. Like, and it sounds probably stupid, but obviously you quit your job and you're traveling full time. It's like, okay, cool. Well, of course you're going to have time, but I didn't actually know what to do with myself for a start. So I was still actually quite anxious because I was putting pressure on myself to be doing stuff. And when I didn't, I felt lonely because I was used to being surrounded by a team or in a shopping center full of people and managing people and calling people and Zooming people every day. And so I had to do something. And so this was really helping just to slow me down and bring awareness to not only myself, but connecting back with nature. So I was doing yoga outside underneath the awning of the caravan every day. And, I was just hearing things and seeing things almost like for the first time, because I'd also had a career where I was indoors for 20 years for 12 to 14 hours a day. And, I would go to work in the dark and come home from work in the dark and go to the gym in the dark and come home from gym in the dark. And so I was just like missing out on life. And so this whole practice of yoga in the morning, really just changed my awareness around everything, including myself. I didn't expect to become a teacher, but when I got to Perth and I was like looking for jobs and nothing was just aligning with me, and come hell or high water, I just knew I was never going back to that career. I thought, I'm going to go and learn more about this yoga thing. Like I really just didn't know anything about it. I thought I'm going to go do a training, and I had the time. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do a whole month intensive rather than over a course of a year like most people do it. So I went and did, 30 days of yoga, and I'm talking 30 days of yoga, like 8 hours a day studying and practicing yoga. And as I went through that, obviously, you know what it's like being on your teacher training. You shed a lot of weight. It's like being on a retreat, but like 10 times more intense. And hearing what other people were saying and what I was, unpacking as well. Like I had no intention of actually being a teacher after. I just wanted to explore for myself. But what I learned was that if I had have known about yoga or taken yoga more seriously back in my career, and I had the education behind it that I now know is from more of a philosophical side as well as the physical practice of asana, I probably wouldn't have burned out. I probably wouldn't have, lost my confidence in myself. I probably wouldn't have let, toxic men and friends just, traumatize me for my whole life or my whole business career. And so I thought more women need to hear about this and more business women need to know about this. And I have an obligation now that I know this information to share it.
I love that. Absolutely.
So that's kind of like where it came into my world. And, like there's days that I remember being on the road where, just one example of that was I was in Broome for a little bit, probably was there for like a couple of months because I just loved it so much. It was the end of the summer season or the wet season, the sun season, but I was just like hanging on to every last bit, that I could. And I remember, just walking down the street one day, and I would probably have been there for about 6 weeks by this point, but I'd been practicing yoga every day. And people from the caravan park started to come and practice yoga with me, other women that were traveling. And this was really cool. And I wasn't even qualified when this happened. And then also that same sort of week, I noticed things that I hadn't noticed the other 6 weeks I'd been in the exact same location. And that was the colors of the flowers were brighter. Then I noticed the bees on the flowers. Then I noticed this mural that I'd walked past every single day. And it was my version of enlightenment or the awakening, because you know, I use the term enlightening very lightly because my experience hasn't been what you might hear of the dogmatic world, which is, mind-blowing experience, stuff coming out your head, all the things.
Yeah.
But for me, it was more like a noticing. I was like, I'm noticing life. And this was a slow evolution of, over time, consistent practice of yoga. I just started to wake up and I was like so much more grateful to the world. My attitude changed. I no longer became the negative friend. I had a negative friend that was on a trip with me. And when we started that trip, I was the person. I was the complainer. I was the whinger. And I knew it and I just didn't know how to get out of it. And by the end of it, like when I got to Perth, I started noticing that that was her and it wasn't me anymore. And I was like, wow, this has shifted. And it was the only thing that I was really doing was, one, I quit my toxic career, and two, I was doing yoga.
Wow. And how it's all just threaded together now, like everything, just all of the life experiences for you to experience what you did in your corporate job and to reach that point of, breakdown, to then change your trajectory, to then find yoga with all that extra time and now have it thread together. It's all so, in my opinion, like it's always supposed to sequentially as it's supposed to be. And I often refer back to my retreat as well when I was in a room and excuse me, I was a young mom, so I was probably about 25, and I felt really inferior. I was just like, there's people that are either a career or they're a bit more of a experienced parent. I'm just like, am I doing any of it right? And so but I remember being in this room of like 80 people and who I would be, I guess in my own mind, witnessing in my opinion as being well esteemed or like accomplished to everyone in between. Like, everyone's accomplished in their own right. Don't get me wrong. But I just felt the people that I thought had it all together, like the CEOs, I'm just like, oh man, we are all at the very core of everything are struggling with the same thing, which is like, I just want to feel worthy in myself. I just want to feel loved. I just want to feel like it's all going to be okay and I'm doing okay. And it blew my mind that was my epiphany, where I'm just like, holy hell, it doesn't matter what you've accomplished or where you've been or what life you're living. The fundamental commonality that we all struggle with is feeling not enough and feeling that we have to internally have it all sorted out or struggle on our own. And it's just like, if people just knew about this practice and opened up a space where they could just share these parts of themselves and have that vulnerability, it would change workplaces. It would change corporate situations and industries. And I think you having the experience of both, now you can see the impact of not having it and the impact that it would have if people just allowed it in, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, people probably think that this is a preachy thing to say, but I mean, literally, if everyone in the world did yoga, we wouldn't even have wars. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, totally. It really is that profound. And like you were saying, for someone who is struggling with confidence and self-worth and feels unloved and is constantly seeking outside of themselves for that gratification, for that validation that they're good enough, that they belong in this world and have purpose and have a place here and are being seen, it's up to you to see that in yourself. But people don't know how to actually do that, and they don't know how to actually find that, or dive into it, or even what questions to ask themselves, or even where to start on that journey. And honestly, like, yoga is the place for that.
Yeah.
It might seem silly to people who have never stepped on a yoga mat or been to a yoga class before, but I always say that the yoga mat is like a mirror, and you hop on the mat and it reflects back to you what is coming up. So maybe, you go to your first yoga class and you think, oh, far out, that's a challenge. my body's not good enough or not strong enough or whatever. But, that'll be reflecting of something else that's going on within you as well. Maybe it's the mind. Maybe I don't have the resilience or the inner strength to actually pull myself through this. And it's not that you don't have it. It's just reflecting back to you your own thoughts. And so I think it really is a profound process and pathway that can help anyone, whether you are a business person or not. It definitely can add value to anyone's life, but most importantly, like you said, it can actually, when you consistently show up to it, help you unpack without even a guide. Obviously, guides and coaches and teachers and gurus are amazing to help you get through that quicker. But over time, if you just keep showing up to it, you will actually answer your own questions, because you do actually have the answers within. As cliche and as that may sound, it's the truth.
It's the truth. I completely that's the song I love to sing. And I think, with this mindfulness and this connection to self, and I know that you are such a huge advocate of it as well, which is what I think really connected us instantaneous, like when we first met. Now, like, this is the privilege that we get to be in, right? Where we have these tools, where we know that we have the answers, we have the power within, as another one of those amazing sayings that sound like buzzwords, but it's freaking true. When you let it land, you may need to hear it 52 times before it lands, but when it lands, it lands. But you have that power within. And so it's a privilege to now be like, all right, what am I going to do with this? Like, what am I going to do with this in my personal life, in my professional life? So how does it help you? And how do you help? How do you feel? How can you explain it? It benefits you in how you serve your clients.
Yeah, look, pretty much my philosophy around this is, I guess, in a nutshell, spirituality. And my definition of spirituality is trusting yourself and your inner knowing more than you trust anything else in the world. So even if you have another faith, because a lot of people think that, other faiths, like Christianity or, Catholic or whatever, actually conflict with yoga, but I disagree. I think they still work alongside. Mm-hmm. But spirituality to me is actually trusting yourself more than you trust anything else. And by knowing yourself truly, by confronting these things every time you step on the mat or life situations, and you don't shy away from them, and you don't put your head in the sand like an ostrich, and you don't sweep it under the carpet and all the things, you actually deal with it head on, and you go, okay, cool, how do I feel in this moment? And, really just start asking yourself those reflective questions about how you are in that situation, and at what point did you contribute to that situation and get yourself into that situation, and reflect on how you can get yourself out of that situation. Like, all of that, you'll have the answers from within. And so in everyday life, how that becomes super practical is literally as simple as when you get up in the morning and you're like, okay, what do I've got a whole plethora of things I need to get done today. Where do I start? Okay, well, hang on a minute. What do I want to achieve today? Right, I want to achieve that. What would be the first step to achieving that? And you kind of work backwards, because you understand that there is this process of trusting yourself and your inner knowing, and how to tune into that to make it happen in real life. Mm-hmm. So rather than, like, even someone mentioned to me or asked me a little while ago, do I practice yoga every day? And sometimes I don't. And I think that I go through stages where I need to, and I feel like I need to, if I'm really not clear on something, or I need that extra clarity and I need to cut away some extra noise or something that's been going on in my life, then I'll really come back and dive deep into it. I'm kind of going through that at the moment because I've had some stuff going on in my personal life. But then I go through phases where I don't do yoga every day because I'm living yoga every day. Mm-hmm, and I feel like I need to practice yoga every day because I've embodied it, and everything I'm doing in my daily routine is based off of that self-trust and surrender, and just getting on with it from a place of knowing, like, that I can make a decision and trust myself, rather than having to stop and take that conscious effort to work it out, which is cyclical. It's like, yeah, cool, I'll be in like flow for a bit, and then a challenge will come up, and then I'll have to dive back in again. And I think that's just part of life. I think most people, they get to that next challenge and they go, shit, this has come up again. Like, what do I do? And they beat themselves up over it, rather than be like, cool, how did I land here? Okay, what can I do differently about this? So I don't know if that answers the question.
No, but then like you said some incredible things there, which I absolutely agree with. I think, there's a time where it gets to a point where you're just naturally embodying the yoga every day. And sometimes you might need to dial it up a little more consciously. And other days you're just like, I'm being human. And, these things might pop back around, whether it's personally, whether it's professionally. And sometimes you can be like, what I believe gets in the way, or what we might create an illusion in and around, is that there should be a solution to everything. And what I mean by that is that if the similar issue comes back around, you're like, oh man, I thought we've done this. And it can be really like a kick in the guts, and you make you feel like, oh, I didn't get this right, or whatever the dialogue plays out to be, where you beat yourself up and think like, shit, was I not a yogi? Did I not do it right? Like, and it's just like, things are going to come, like there's going to be like layers of everything. And that it could feel like the same thing, but it doesn't mean that you're the same person with that same exact problem. You are a different being. The problem has evolved, as well, or the problem or the challenge or the opportunity of growth, we shall say. And I think like there's an element of, drawing upon that knowingness that you'll always find the answers. Like you got through it the last time, and, problems will continue to come. And it's just, like you said, just drawing on that knowing and that trust within yourself more and more. Like, okay, yeah, it's come back around. I wish it didn't, but it's obviously something here for me. I've got the answer within me to find what it is. And I think when you cultivate that like relationship and expect that things will still continue to come, we're not going to live in a world where challenges no longer exist, because we need challenges to grow. And we embrace the challenges now, not from a space of it's happening to me, like we know that saying so well. It's like these challenges are showing up for me to elevate in some level, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Exactly. And also as well, like it's really nice when if you have come back around to a challenge that has been similar to something that's happened in the past, but you are so aware that you're handling it different. Yeah. That is like the coolest thing ever, because you're like, oh, this thing has come back up. But no, I'm not going to do the same thing this time. I'm going to make a different choice, and this is what I'm going to tolerate. And, last time I tolerated X, Y, Z, but this time I'm not going to tolerate that. Or last time I behaved like this, and I'm not going to behave like that anymore, because that's not who I am. Because you as a person have grown since the last time too. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's really cool to have those realizations as well, rather than just the negative realization around, oh, I've come back into this situation again. It's like, oh, I've come back into this situation again. This is interesting. And then
yeah, and celebrate it and be like, cool, yeah, I'm not the same person. And yeah, and I guess have that ability to depersonalize it as well, and be like, okay, it's here. Why is it here? Let's just find a way. And it doesn't have to be all into like, let's unpack every little thing. What childhood memory is this in relation to? Yeah. Which I think
it's exhausting.
It's tiring AF, right? So in your opinion then, like entwining spirituality into running your business and helping women do the same, what is like some of the key fundamentals that you think help? I mean, we probably touched on a bunch, but.
Yeah, look, I think when you're running a business and you do have this self-awareness, and from, your life experience or other career experiences, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, I think using that to your advantage is the best way to set up, for example, your business structure or your business model, like whatever you're selling or how you're servicing people. Because I personally work with a lot of business women that burn out really, really quickly from not listening to that, and they set up their business model that is, popular or what is trending at the moment, and it doesn't energetically align with them, and it becomes exhausting because they didn't want to work 24/7, 7 days a week like this other coach or this other mentor or this other service provider, or they don't want to, come and, run a practice or a yoga class and have to teach, 57 classes a week to make a living. A lot of people set up a business or choose a job role, even if we're talking about corporate people, they choose these things that aren't aligned with who they are or their energetic capacity, empaths and, really compassionate people, they really feel energy a lot, as you know, and by being in a large room full of people 24/7 or having to answer to large teams, it can be really exhausting for them, and especially if they have absolutely no life outside of work. So that's really important as well, because, work-life balance isn't 50-50. Different people have different energy and different capacity. And so that's going to look different for everyone. But how you set up your business or choose your career path based on what works for you is absolutely necessary to know. And you're not going to get it right at first. Like my business has changed, I don't know, probably at least 4 evolutions in the last 4 years.
Totally.
You know, I feel like now I have the business model that I want. I service people in group, but I also service people one-on-one, but I cap it. You know, I'm like, cool. The max capacity for me is 3 people one-to-one at any given time, because don't want to spend all my time on my phone and on my laptop, but 2, that's it. I'm going to give them 100%. I'm going to give my group 100%, and I'm going to give my one-to-one people 100%. And there's only X amount of people that I can work with before I've just got nothing left in the tank. And I refuse to let myself burn out again. Like that,
I love that.
you know, it's not a fun time. So
No. I love that, because I think what you just touched on is powerful. And again, it'll always come back to knowing yourself as in depthly and deeply as you can, because I think not understanding, like, am I an empath? Like, yeah, I can't be in rooms all the time, and your logical mind's like, but Billy can. So like, just sit in the boardroom and have this meeting after meeting, because otherwise you're going to look less than or weak. So whatever plays out. And I think you'll only ever know what your capacity is and your bandwidth and what's in alignment to what you value when you know yourself. And when you know yourself, how you know yourself is by spending the time and the space to see what shows up. And it's okay once you know that. You can't unknow that. And then you'll start to be really aware when you're going against what's right for you. But you have to dedicate the time to understand who and what it is that makes you thrive, to then base everything around that. So you saying, like, you know, business structures are going to change from client to client or person to person, because someone's capacity is like they might feel energized doing more than, say, what the next person is doing. And it doesn't mean that either are of lesser value. It's just that they're honoring where they're at and what is valuable to them. So I think people really need to hear that.
Absolutely. I mean, just as an example, I had a coach over a year ago now, that different coach to the one I'm currently working with. And she was like, cool, like if you want to make money out of retreats, like just run more retreats. And like, you know, this is someone who's never run a retreat.
Yeah. See, this is the thing with our type of,
you understand how much energy goes into this, like, and thought process, and you know, like
holding that space is a lot of energetic bandwidth. And just because it's not a visible thing, people just don't put enough. A lot of people in our industry, we value the invisible, but a lot of people just think it's not real, and just push. Like,
people are like, cool, so just order more food or like get more rooms, and I'm like, cool, it's not about that. It's about when, you know, 15, 20, 25, 30 women turn up in a room and they've all got stuff going on in their life. And I have to hold space for that. And I have to be able to deal, like if all of them decide that they're going to release a trauma today, then someone needs to facilitate the energy and the conversation. And that's a lot. And so, you know, I think people also don't think about these things when they go into business. And I work with a lot of wellness business owners. And they start running retreats or they start running coaching programs, and they're like, just more. Well, you know, are you prepared? The fact that, you know, not only do you have to hold space for that many people, but you have to market every time you open a new event. Like, do you really want to launch 20 times a year to open 20 events a year? Do you really want to, you know, launch a coaching program 20 times a year? Like, how often are you taking people in? And people just don't really think about that kind of thing when they start their business, because they just saw someone else do it and do it well, which again, no one ever knows the background story of how that person got there and how they made that successful or how they made it look easy, you know. And so people just dive into these things thinking, I'll just do that because it looks cool or it's trending. And it doesn't work like that. Like, you have to know from yourself, what do I have to offer? What do I want to share with the world? And how is this going to affect me on an energetic level, and a practical level for my own lifestyle? So
totally. I hear that so loud and clear. Like, I think when I started kinesiology, like my mentor, she is still my mentor now days. Like, we're going on like 5-6 years. She's just brilliant. But I heard it, but I didn't really hear it back then, where she's just like, the more clients you have, the more you've got to like make sure you take care of yourself. So do the float tanks, do the things. So in my head, I'm just like, there was still, I guess, judgments against myself of like, that sounds like really bougie. Like, oh, I need this. And Like I need to make sure I spend some time for myself. And so that was still old stuff that was coming through and revealing itself to me, that like I didn't really value myself as much as I needed to. And you're putting other people before your own well-being. And so it's just this like, give more, give more, give more, give yourself a little, but not too much, or like, and so I think, especially in wellness, when you're holding these spaces, and especially like, and wherever you're holding a service or whatever you're passionate about, and holding that capacity, you've got to be really aware of what's available to you and what's going to send you over your energetic edge, and what you need to do to help you revitalize yourself to come back to your nice, humble space of tranquility, or whatever, of harmony.
Exactly. And even for creative businesses is also another one. Like I see photographers or artists or events businesses and things like that all the time burn out, like creatively, and they've just got no ideas left in the tank. And, their number one thing is like, oh, I need to get more customers, because they haven't had the creativity to create the content or the marketing material to get more customers, but they don't have the creativity because they haven't taken any time for themselves as well. So yeah, like I understand what you're saying. It's like, oh, cool. Like every 3 customers, it might sound bougie to go for a float tank, but
yeah.
You need to work out what works for you in order to get that creativity back. For me, it's like a walk on the beach. Yeah. I'm going to post a video tonight on my Instagram of me just walking, smiling like an absolute lunatic at the beach, watching the dogs run around like nutcases today, because it lights me up, like just getting my feet in the sand, feeling the energy of the earth, picking up shells, and I just rub them between my hands on my walk. By the time I get home, I literally cannot wipe the smile off my face because it's just brought me so much joy. And I've just gone on my own. Like, do you know what I mean? So people just need to work out what lights them up, what gives them energy, what gives them inspiration, and do more of that between the service and the giving.
Yes, what you said, that last part, dynamite. You've got to do more of it. And I think whatever the resistance might be of just like, that sounds a bit selfish or whatever you've got playing out, because I get that. I had that song humming. But the more you do that, your business will absolutely change. Your services will absolutely change. The way that you get the results, or I guess the interactions with the people, it all changes. And it again, bottom line is you've got to take care of you to be the best that you can for everything that you're here to contribute.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. I could talk to you all day long. So how do people work with you?
Yeah, I have just launched a brand new program. It's a business mentoring program for business owners that really do want to connect in with their soul's purpose. So maybe you've started a business, maybe you've got an idea, but you're not really sure how to get it to lift off, or you're like me, you're in, a career that you're not loving right now, or a business you're not loving right now, and you want to step out of that. So this is a group coaching program. It's a hybrid coaching program in that you get one-to-one contact time with me as well as group. It is an absolute vibe. It's called the Soulful CEO Collective. And yeah, I'm intaking people right now. So you can start for as little as $100 a week. So yeah.
Perfect. And how can people find you?
Oh, I hang out on Instagram, probably more than I would like to admit. Harmony _ Jade. So yeah, definitely send me a DM if you've listened to this episode. I would love to know that you've listened, and yeah, drop in to connect.
Oh, thank you, my love. Well, I have had such a great time just chatting, unpacking. We could probably talk for days, but people that have listened on in, please do yourself the absolute favor and hit up Harmony, follow what she does. She's super passionate. She is in your corner when you're in alignment. She's backing you every step of the way, or she wants to help you get to that point, like us all. So if you do listen to this episode, or when you do, can you forward it to the people that you believe that this can support? Because everyone deserves just to have a little bit of, I guess, inspiration or a seed planted for them, whether they hear it right now or it just gets landed and flourishes later. It's all in service of everyone just becoming their more fulfilled self. So thank you, Harmony, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a vibe. I love it.
Yay, my pleasure. Thank you for those who joined. And until next week, take care of you.
Audience exclusive.